Okay, so this is the final layout that I do want to do with the black outline around every block. I did realize though in the construction of each block I did make an error. So this strip here should actually be on the top of this one. So what I'm going to need to do is be creative and remove this square in here, and then I will join this block to here and then this block to here, and this will end up being like a Y seam situation. So I'm not going to show you how I go ahead and do it. I would just highly recommend that before you quilt these, that this strip gets added to this one if you're following the same layout. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that, and then I'll show you how we will cover up the back seams, and then we'll add binding, and this quilt will be all done. Okay, so with all the fixing of the center part, it took me about an hour to join together the 4 blocks. It was really fiddly, and to help give it extra strength in the center, I actually top stitched the center square. It looks intentional now if I were to zoom up on it. And now we come to the back side. So let me flip it over and show you what we need to do to finish this off. Okay, so this is the back side. I did have to piece a lot of the fabric together because I didn't have enough. And these are scraps that I'm using. Because my seams don't line up, normally what you would do, and I have to warn you, I have not done this method before, so I'm kind of learning as I'm filming this as well. So from other YouTube creators, and I'll put their information in the video description, what you would do is you'd cut a strip of fabric that has the edges turned over, and you would go all the way down, realizing that you'd be showing some stitching on the right side. Well, because these are offset, it would look funny on the front side, and I would actually have the black strip here and here and there and there, and then you'd end up seeing stitching wherever the light background is in the finished piece. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make wide strips that cover both sides like this, and then here and here, so they're going to be quite big, and then I'll plan it so when I stitch them on the front, it's going to fall within the design. I'll use a very light thread that is hardly seen, and it'll look like it's part of the quilting process. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. With the strips, keep in mind the edges do have to be turned under because you want something that's going to last through many cycles of laundry. So let me go ahead and plan that out, and then I'll show you what I've done. So for the cover strips, I've cut 5.5-inch strips out of black, and then I've pressed them over 1 inch on either side. So when I go to lay these over top, it'll cover both sides. And if you'll notice, I use these smooth paper clips. They have to be all metal, so they can't have any plastic coating on them. And you don't want the serrated ones because these I actually measure and put in place, and I press with my iron with the clips in place, and it works really well for holding them down firmly. Also, if you use them for binding, as they slide along, you can just gently keep sewing and then remove a group of them at one time, so it adds a little bit of extra time. So that's a little tip for you. Okay, so my 5-inch strip coverage failed because when I turned it over on the other side, I had a really ugly seam going right through the block. So I didn't like how that looked. So I tore it all apart. What I've decided to do is I've got a 3-inch wide strip I've pressed it in half. Then I've sewn it on one part of the seam here and then flipped it over. So sort of like binding to that. And then I'm hand sewing it down here. And then I'll do the same on this side. I think in the end, that's what I'm going to be the most happiest with. I may try top stitching it when I'm all done to see how it looks on the other side. So far I've got one edge done. I'm about to do the other. So this I haven't done to the end because when I put this strip in, I will tuck it underneath so that there's a nice finished edge. This is taking a lot longer than I expected, but in the end I'll be happier with the result. So unfortunately, not paying attention in the beginning has made a lot of extra work, but in some circumstances, we learn from our mistakes, right? So I'll show you as I go along, and then the binding will be going on next. So I have to confess my solution of stitching is over to cover up the joining of the panels hasn't worked to my favor and has made it more complicated. So I decided to take those off, and my solution is to cover it all up. And I've got this beautiful fabric that I'm going to put on facing right side out, and it's going to go over top of the backing. And then I'm going to quilt around the dark areas to hold it in place, and then I'll bind the quilt. So once that's done, I'll show you how it turns out. So I finally have this all done, and I did machine stitch on the binding because I know this is going to a recipient where it's going to be used a lot. So I just wanted to show you some of the quilting. So on this panel, I just outlined some of the areas just to give it a bit of pop. And then on this one, I did the cross hatch. And then this one is parallel lines. And then this one I did kind of like a V. And this is the part I really did like about the Quilt As You Go, is each panel I could do individually. And then the seam joining it together is kind of here. When I added the backing, I stitched around, down, and then across, and then again the black just to hold the backing in. And then on the back side, because this is already quilted through the other layer, I just need to tack this so it stay in place. So again, I've got the binding sewn in, and then the outline of each panel, which is in black. And this is very shiny fabric. Anyway, let's take a look. So you can see in the center, it's got kind of a cross pattern. Thankfully, my sewing machine is quite robust, so it was easy to go through all these layers. So I hope you like following along with this. I do plan on doing some more Quilt As You Go because I really like the process. I just need to pay more attention to how things line up before you join the blocks. So I hope you stick around for the next video. I'll show a picture of the finished quilt. My husband volunteered to hold it for me. So until next time, sew safely and sew with Debee. Have a great day, and bye for now.